History isn't a straight line, it's a cycle. A 500-year financial rhythm that rises with innovation and collapses under debt. 5 empires, 5 reserve currencies, 5 peaks, and 5 falls. Spain struck silver and built the first global currency empire. The Dutch turned finance into a weapon of world trade. Britain mastered industry and ruled the seas with the pound. America rebuilt the world and crowned the dollar king. Each believed they would lead forever. Each watched their power slip away. That same pattern is visible again today. Record debt trade rivalries, rising challengers, currencies competing for loyalty, a global financial order shifting beneath our feet. So the question isn't whether empires fall. The question is, what phase are we in right now? Stay with me. Because to know the dollar's future, we first need to understand how empires rise and why they crash. Chapter 1. Silver and Conquest, the mountain that funded an empire. 5 centuries ago, in the icy heights of the Andes, a mountain changed the fate of the world. The Spanish called it Cerro Rico, the rich hill. A mountain so saturated with silver that early accounts claimed you could carve wealth straight from the rock. It became the beating heart of Spain's global power, the fuel that financed its armies, the lifeblood of its empire. The world's first true monetary superpower was not built in palaces, but in a mine carved into a mountain of suffering. When conquistadors stumbled upon Potosi in 1545, they found what every empire dreams of, a bottomless treasure. Silver that Europe had never seen before. Silver that ignited a financial revolution. Coins minted from this mountain spread across continents like wildfire, stamped with a symbol of Spanish dominion. The silver peso, the world's first global currency, began its journey here. It bought soldiers, ships, alliances, even kings. Suddenly, Spain had the cash to project power everywhere. Yet behind every gleaming coin was a darker cost. Tens of thousands of indigenous laborers, forced to toil in deadly tunnels. Many never returned to daylight. Poisonous mercury was used to extract the silver faster. The wealth of a continent rested on the bodies of those who paid the price with their lungs, their blood, their lives. This was prosperity built on exploitation, a warning all empires underestimate. Nothing that grows this fast can ever be truly stable. Still, for a while, Spain looked unstoppable. Silver poured into Europe, transforming dusty treasuries into engines of war and ambition. Monarchs spent without restraint, believing the flow would never slow. The Spanish crown financed crusades of conquest. Grand armadas were built to enforce Spain's will across oceans. Diplomats scattered silver like confetti to secure loyalty. The world witnessed a nation that felt invincible. Factories in China demanded silver. Trade routes reshaped themselves around the Spanish peso. This wasn't just wealth, it was global economic gravity. Silver from one mountain in South America linked Asia, Europe, and the New World in a system of trade never seen before. A truly global market was born. Spain stood at its center like a sun around which everything else orbited. Yet beneath the shine, the seeds of collapse were already growing. Spain relied on wealth it didn't create. Instead of building industry or innovation, it extracted. Instead of producing, it consumed. The empire drowned in riches so quickly that it forgot how to swim. Inflation surged as more silver chased the same goods. Prices soared, ordinary citizens struggled. The economy became addicted to extraction. Spain bought everything from outsiders: guns, ships, luxury goods. Foreign merchants got rich selling to the Spanish, who clutched endless silver but manufactured little. Neighbors who once feared Spanish might now quietly understood Spain's weakness. Remove the silver and nothing remained. Debt crept in like a shadow. War costs ballooned, armies grew hungry. Silver shipments slowed as mines deepened, workers died, and corruption flourished. The mountain's riches were not infinite. Neither was Spain's power. Other nations watched, learned, and prepared. They saw the truth: control of a resource is not control of an empire. Lasting dominance comes from innovation, finance, and systems capable of multiplying wealth. While Spain dug deeper into the earth, competitors began building something far more sustainable above ground. Soon the money that once cemented Spain's dominance became the weight dragging it down. An empire rich in silver but poor in resilience faced the beginning of decline. The mountain that made Spain a superpower could not save it from its own mistakes. This is the first law of global power. Easy money breeds hard consequences. Spain believed treasure could buy permanent supremacy. The world corrected that belief. The Silver Empire had lit a match that would burn out faster than anyone expected. Its brilliance was undeniable, but brilliance alone cannot bend history to its will. Because while Spain enjoyed its glittering moment, a small nation in northern Europe observed everything with sharp eyes. It saw that wealth could be manufactured rather than mined. That money could be multiplied through credit, not extracted from mountains. That the future belonged not to those who struck silver, but to those who controlled finance. A new challenger emerged, carrying not swords but ledgers, not mines but markets, ready to build the world's first financial empire. Ready to break the patterns Spain thought it had mastered. Spain ruled with treasure. The next empire would rule with numbers. The cycle was already shifting. The question wasn't whether Spain would fall. The question was who would rise to take its place. And that answer was about to rewrite the rules of global power. Because the Dutch had a different vision. They would not chase silver underground. They would build wealth from the surface of the sea. Their weapon was not a mountain. It was a new invention the world had never seen. The corporation. While Spain dug deeper into its mountains, another force quietly prepared to seize the future. A small republic with cold winds, flat lands, and almost no natural resources. The Dutch understood what Spain never learned. Empires are not built on what you take from the earth. They are built on what your mind can create. Amsterdam became a laboratory of financial genius. Here, merchants gathered with a radical idea. Instead of one king funding endless wars, what if thousands of citizens could invest together? What if risk could be spread like cargo across a fleet of ships? What if wealth wasn't locked in a vault, but multiplied through credit and trust? The answer was a single invention that transformed the world. A concept so revolutionary that it still dominates global power today. The Joint Stock Corporation. Its name was the VOC, the Dutch East India Company, the world's first mega corporation, a business so powerful it ran like a nation. It raised money from ordinary investors. It printed its own shares. It fought wars. It conquered islands. It built forts. It enforced laws. It negotiated treaties. It paid dividends that turned everyday citizens into global stakeholders. The Dutch looked at the Spanish treasure fleets and smiled. Silver was finite. Innovation was endless. Money, they believed, should move faster than ships. Faster than armies, faster than kings. Amsterdam's stock exchange came alive with noise and ambition. Prices rose and fell with each ship's arrival. Fortune favored patience and information. A global network grew across oceans, moving goods few Europeans had ever seen. Spices, silks, porcelain, tea, coffee. Rare luxuries that sparked cravings back home and poured profits into Dutch coffers. Their empire wasn't built through brute force. It grew from contracts and capital. A new kind of power. Decentralized, scalable, unstoppable. Where Spain hoarded silver, the Dutch multiplied money. Ships built in Dutch ports sailed farther. Insurance protected voyages against disaster. Credit expanded trade beyond the limits of existing wealth. Every transaction added momentum. Amsterdam became the financial capital of the world. The Dutch realized something profound. Wealth is not the metal in a vault. Wealth is the trust that people place in a system, a promise that tomorrow will be profitable. That idea reshaped the global economy. And yet power always brings predators. The VOC's profits attracted rivals. The seas turned hostile. European powers learned that whoever controlled trade routes controlled the future. Cannons were loaded not just to protect territory, but to protect margins. The Dutch confronted enemies far larger than themselves. Spain still clung to its empire. Portugal guarded its routes to the east. Even England, once a lesser power, now sharpened its naval teeth. The waves became a battlefield where every ship carried two things: firepower and financial liability. The Dutch fought smarter. Where Spain relied on silver to fund fleets, the Dutch used finance to build fleets. They borrowed. They reinvested. They leveraged. They scaled. They turned money into machines that created more money. A single Dutch decision showed the world how empires behave when fear meets innovation. They built ships faster than their enemies could destroy them. The ocean, once Spain's hunting ground, became a marketplace ruled by Dutch efficiency. Soon, Amsterdam's wealth dwarfed royal treasuries. It even rescued kings from bankruptcy. When monarchs needed cash, they turned to Dutch lenders. Imagine that. The most powerful crowns in Europe kneeling figuratively before a republic of merchants. Power had shifted, not to a throne, to a stock exchange. This was the second law of global supremacy. The empire with the most flexible financial system will always outrun the empire with the most treasure. Yet even the Dutch could not escape the costs of dominance. Wars against England drained coffers. Competition grew fiercer. The corporation that once looked unstoppable now struggled to defend its empire against a nation it had accidentally taught how to win. England studied the Dutch like a master studying a rival magician. Joint stock companies, credit markets. Naval strategy mixed with financial power. The English didn't just copy the Dutch blueprint. They improved it. The British created bigger companies, built stronger fleets, formed alliances that turned oceans into highways of imperial expansion. And while Amsterdam remained rich, London grew richer still, fueled by industrial muscle the Dutch could not match. Every empire's greatest weakness is the next nation that learns its secrets. The Dutch discovered the formula. Britain would perfect it. There is a bitter irony in financial history. The more successful an innovation becomes, the faster others learn to use it against the inventor. Dutch dominance proved that finance beats silver. Innovation beats extraction. Systems beat treasure. But systems can be stolen. As English factories pumped out ships faster than Dutch yards could dream, as British investors poured money into ever-expanding ventures, the center of financial gravity began to shift again. The Netherlands had built the world's first financial empire, yet they lacked the sheer industrial weight to defend it. The next challenger had both money and muscle. The seas that once carried Dutch wealth now echoed with the thunder of British cannons. The empire of numbers was fading, replaced by an empire of machines. Amsterdam could no longer shape the world alone. Power was migrating across the North Sea. The baton of global finance was being passed again. This is the rhythm of financial history. When one empire builds a system so powerful that others can copy it, its own decline becomes inevitable. The Dutch showed the world that capital could conquer. The British learned that capital backed by industry could conquer forever. Spain believed silver was enough. The Dutch believed finance was enough. Britain would prove both were only the beginning. The age of the pound was about to begin, and the world was about to change again. Chapter 3. Pounds, Steam, and the Price of Global Power. The Dutch had proven that money could rule the world. Britain would prove that industry could rule money. While the Netherlands perfected finance, Britain built machines that multiplied wealth beyond imagination. The Industrial Revolution was not just a leap in technology. It was the spark that turned the British pound into the most powerful currency the world had ever known. Factories roared to life. Steam engines pumped, spun, and hammered raw materials into profits. Coal drove iron built railways. Railways connected cities that once felt an ocean apart. Britain transformed itself from a small island kingdom into the workshop of the world. Exports surged. British goods flooded every major port. Cloth woven in Manchester clothed millions across continents. Steel from Sheffield supported railways in India. Ships built in Liverpool carried tea from China and gold from Australia. Every transaction, every contract, every cargo was priced in British pounds. Power now had a currency, and that currency had a promise. The Bank of England declared that pounds could always be exchanged for gold. Real wealth tangible. Trusted. Where Spain relied on extraction and the Dutch relied on innovation, Britain now controlled both the production of goods and the belief system behind global money. Naval dominance locked this system into place. The Royal Navy became a floating guarantee that British trade would flow without interruption. Cannon fire enforced economic policy. Every sea lane was a British lifeline. Empires do not just trade. They defend trade with overwhelming force. London rose as the new capital of capital. Merchants and bankers gathered where the world's profits converged. Insurance markets protected global businesses from risk. Credit expanded empires farther than any fleet could sail. The British didn't just export goods. They exported rules. They exported finance. They exported the pound. Countries that wanted to trade with the world had to use it. The pound turned Britain into the first true global financial hegemon. An empire measured not only in land, but in ledgers. For over a century, the pound sterling reigned at the center of global commerce. Britain issued bonds and other nations lined up to buy them. The pound was power. The pound was stability. The pound was the future. For a time, it seemed unbeatable. Yet success always hides its own dangers. The bigger Britain grew, the more dependent it became on holding that position. Controlling the world is expensive. Defending trade routes across every ocean is expensive. Managing colonies on every continent is expensive. A global empire is both a crown and a burden. Then came the true test. A conflict so vast it swallowed empires whole. Britain did not collapse overnight. The empire did not fall in a single moment. Decline is quieter, slower, almost invisible while it's happening. One lost contract here, one naval withdrawal there. A currency that once commanded loyalty now had to request trust. The pound had built an empire of industry and trade. The costs of war broke it. Every empire believes its reach is permanent. Every empire discovers it is not. So the cycle turned once more. Wealth shifted across the Atlantic. The torch of financial supremacy changed hands. For the fourth time in 5 centuries, the world crowned a new monetary empire. History watched as one flag lowered and another rose. The world's banking system, trade routes, and economic future pivoted toward the American century. Spain ruled with silver. The Dutch ruled with stock markets. Britain ruled with industry and the pound. America would rule with something else entirely. A promise stronger than treasure. A network bigger than an empire. A currency backed by the economic engine of the modern world. The next chapter would define today's reality. Because when the dollar took command, it rewrote the rules again. This time, the system would be global. The power would be institutional. And the consequences would reach every nation on Earth. The age of the dollar was beginning. Its rise would be unstoppable, or so it seemed. The British Empire stepped off the world stage exhausted. The war had left a financial crater so deep that even centuries of power could not fill it. Into that vacuum stepped a nation that had been preparing for its moment without saying a word. The United States. In America emerged from World War II not broken, but booming. While others sacrificed their cities and industries to survive, America had transformed itself into the largest manufacturing powerhouse in history. The world needed rebuilding, and the United States held the toolbox. At Bretton Woods in 1944, the victorious nations gathered to decide the future of global money. The British pound was still present, but its voice sounded weaker. The United States, wealthy and confident, offered a deal that seemed like salvation. The world could rebuild using dollars. Dollars would be backed by gold at a fixed rate. Every nation could convert dollars into gold whenever they wished. A promise sealed in metal, the world agreed. The dollar replaced the pound at the center of the global financial universe. Countries fixed their currency values to the dollar. The dollar fixed itself to gold. America controlled most of the world's gold, so trust followed the dollar like a shadow. Europe rebuilt its factories using American loans. Asia reconstructed railways using American investment. International trade resurrected itself, priced in the American dollar. The United States did not conquer the world with fleets of warships. It conquered it with the world's greatest credit card. A new empire was born. Not an empire of colonies, an empire of connections. Dollars flowed, commerce thrived, and the United States became the banker to the planet. This was the age of optimism. The American middle class exploded. Cars filled new highways. Suburbs spread outward like fresh ambition taking shape. The government spent money with confidence, trusting that demand for the dollar would never fade. Yet behind the prosperity, the seeds of a future crisis quietly took root. A global currency must always be trusted. The dollar's trust was backed by gold. As long as America had more gold than dollars in circulation, the system held strong. But power tempts expansion. Wars in Korea and Vietnam devoured money. Social programs ballooned. The United States printed more dollars to pay the bills. The world noticed. Foreign governments started asking for their gold instead of holding dollars. France sent warships to collect its gold reserves from America. Trust was slipping. The gold did not cover the promises anymore. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon ended the gold convertibility. No more gold for dollars. The system that had held the world together was suddenly gone. The dollar was now backed by belief alone. The world should have abandoned it. The world should have moved on to a new anchor. The world did not, because the United States still had unmatched military power, the largest economy, and a financial system everyone depended on. Losing trust was dangerous, yet the alternatives were weaker. So the dollar adapted. It evolved into something more aggressive. The United States struck agreements with major oil-producing nations. Oil would be sold only in US dollars. Every country that needed energy needed dollars first. Demand returned with a roar. A new system had arrived. Not gold-backed, resource-backed. Stability replaced by necessity. This petrodollar order fueled America's global dominance for decades to come. Banks in New York financed development from South America to Southeast Asia. Debt became a weapon. Interest became leverage. U.S. financial markets turned into the beating heart of global capitalism. If the dollar sneezed, the world caught a financial cold. The United States now controlled the flow of money the way ancient empires controlled trade routes. No navy required, no colonies needed. Influence without occupation, power without direct rule. Yet supremacy brings its own risks. The dollar's throne rests on a fragile balance. It requires faith, cooperation, and constant demand. If nations start trading without it, the foundation weakens. If rivals create alternatives, the system shakes. China, Russia, and emerging powers see the dollar not as stability, but as a chain they wish to break. History offers a simple warning. Every currency that has ruled the world eventually faced a challenger. Spain's silver ran dry. The Dutch system collapsed under military failure. Britain's pound fell under the weight of global war. The dollar's story is still being written. Its reach remains enormous. Its influence continues to shape the lives of billions. Yet, the same question shadows every dominant currency. How long can one nation finance the world? The answer never arrives gently. It comes with crisis, change, and conflict. The dollar has enjoyed its reign at the top. The longest, the most powerful, the most global, but no empire in history has escaped the cycle forever. The world is shifting again. New alliances, new financial technologies, new rivals rising with ambitions just as sharp as America's after 1945. The dollar built a modern empire. The question now is whether it can survive the future, because the next chapter of money will not be written by tradition. It will be written by disruption. The fifth shift is coming. The only question is who will lead it. Every empire believes it will last forever. The United States is no different. The dollar still dominates. It still fuels global trade. It still determines who prospers and who collapses. Yet beneath the surface of confidence, the ground is shifting. Quietly, relentlessly, a new financial era is rising. Not built on gold, not secured by military alliances, not controlled by any single nation. This transformation is powered by technology, geopolitics, and a world that no longer trusts old promises. For the first time in 80 years, the dollar is facing competitors that don't need armies or oil agreements to build influence. Digital currencies, central bank innovations. Alternative trade networks, nations seeking escape routes from a system they no longer want to depend on. China stands at the center of this movement. The country that once suffered under foreign finance now builds its own economic architecture. The Belt and Road Initiative connects Asia, Africa, and Europe with infrastructure, ports, and pipelines. Payments increasingly avoid the dollar. Loans are issued in yuan. A currency that once carried no weight now challenges the dollar's dominance one trade agreement at a time. There is more. China launched the world's first major government-issued digital currency, the digital yuan. Fully programmable, fully trackable. A tool not just for payments, but for power. If the future of money is digital, China wants to own the software. Russia, sanctioned and cut off from Western banking, is forging alliances with nations willing to trade outside the dollar. The BRICS bloc, once just a political concept, is morphing into a financial alternative. Their new initiatives aim to create a currency backed by commodities, oil, gas, metals, resources. The world needs, priced in money the United States does not control. These shifts are no longer theoretical. In 1999, almost 70% of global foreign reserves were held in dollars. Today, that number has fallen below 60%, and the decline continues. Nations are diversifying, not because they want to destroy the dollar, because they fear depending on it. Trust is fading. The United States has weaponized the dollar more aggressively in recent years. Sanctions freeze bank accounts, trade restrictions halt industries. Financial punishment replaces military intervention. Effective yet dangerous. Every time a nation is cut off, another nation asks a quiet question. What happens if they target us next? Alternatives grow fastest where fear lives. Technology accelerates the escape. Cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance ignore borders entirely. Bitcoin turned the idea of money into math. A currency without a government, a system without permission. Not big enough to replace the dollar today, yet big enough to change expectations forever. People now understand that money can be independent. The United States is fighting to adapt. The Federal Reserve explores a digital dollar, not to innovate, to maintain control, to avoid being leapfrogged by a financial future already arriving. America's challenge is not foreign competitors. The greatest threat comes from within. The debt towering beyond imagination. Trillions upon trillions, growing faster than the economy that must support it. Interest payments eat more of the national budget each year. Borrowing funds everything from wars to welfare. The dollar remains strong because the world keeps lending. If confidence breaks, the system unravels. History whispers the warning. Once an empire depends on debt to maintain status, decline accelerates. The United States still commands the deepest financial markets. It still anchors global trade. It still has unmatched influence. Dominance does not disappear in a single moment. It erodes through a sequence of choices, some made decades earlier. The world is moving toward multipolar money, a landscape where no currency rules alone, where influence is shared and power is negotiated rather than assumed. The dollar will remain vital, yet no longer guaranteed. Every shift in financial power has reshaped global politics. Silver fueled Spain's imperial conquest. Stocks and capital markets built the Dutch Golden Age. The pound financed Britain's world empire. The dollar created the modern global economy. Now a new kind of currency seeks the throne. It is digital. It is borderless. It is programmable. It may answer to governments. It may answer to corporations. It may answer to code alone. We do not yet know its capital. We do not yet know its ruler. Human history has never stepped into a monetary revolution like this one. The past moved from metal to paper to credit. The future moves from trust to technology. Empires fall when the world decides they are no longer necessary. Empires fall when the money that built them stops being the money the world wants. Power is shifting, not loudly, not suddenly, patiently. The next reserve currency will not announce itself with fanfare. It will appear in trade contracts, in digital wallets, in quiet policy changes, in moments where nations decide that the old system benefits them less than the new one. We stand at the edge of a transformation no one can fully control. The map of global power is being redrawn. The question is not whether change is coming. The question is who will own the future of money. The cycle continues. The fifth shift begins. The empire of the dollar may be entering its final act. Chapter 6. The future. After the dollar, who will control money next? Every empire leaves its mark. Every currency that dominates leaves a trail of wealth, power, and influence. The dollar has ruled for almost a century, shaping global trade, finance, and geopolitics. Yet the signs are everywhere. Cracks in the armor, whispers of change, and rivals moving quietly but decisively. The next chapter of monetary history is already being written, and no one yet knows who will hold the pen. Digital currencies are no longer theoretical experiments. They are real, measurable, and growing in influence. The digital yuan is already being tested for cross-border payments. Cryptocurrencies operate globally, ignoring borders, banks, and governments. They offer freedom, speed, and transparency, but also unpredictability. In a world where money can exist without nations, the rules of power are rewritten overnight. Traditional financial powerhouses are feeling the heat. America's deep markets and unmatched credit cannot guarantee permanent loyalty. Nations are quietly trading outside the dollar system. Europe, Asia, and South America explore alternatives. New trade alliances are forming that do not depend on the United States. The old system, once unquestioned, is no longer unquestionable. Debt compounds the challenge. Trillions of dollars of U.S. national debt hang over the economy like a slow-moving storm. Interest payments, unfunded liabilities, and fiscal deficits grow faster than the currency's ability to maintain global trust. Each decision in Washington, each policy shift, ripples outward, testing confidence in ways that were unimaginable 50 years ago. A single misstep could accelerate change in a world already eager to diversify. Technology accelerates the stakes. AI-driven trading, algorithmic finance, and programmable money could make traditional control obsolete. Money moves faster than armies ever could, and whoever masters the new digital infrastructure may define the next global order. A nation, a corporation, or even decentralized networks might hold power in ways the past never allowed. Yet dominance is not guaranteed to vanish. The United States still wields enormous influence. Its financial networks, military power, and global alliances act as anchors for the dollar. Confidence is not dead. It is tested, stretched, and sometimes shaken, but it remains a powerful force. For now, the world continues to rely on the dollar. But reliance can shift in moments, and history proves that the next empire rarely announces itself in advance. The question becomes more urgent with every passing day. Who will adapt, survive, and dominate in this new era of finance? Will the dollar reinvent itself as it has before, leveraging technology, influence, and innovation to maintain supremacy? Or will it falter, overtaken by digital currencies, alternative payment networks, or rival national strategies that bypass its power entirely? No one knows for certain. History provides patterns but not guarantees. Spain thought silver would secure its empire forever. The Dutch thought capital markets made them untouchable. Britain believed industry and the pound could never fail. America assumed the dollar would always command global trust. Every assumption was eventually challenged. Every empire eventually faced rivals capable of exploiting its weaknesses. The world is entering a period of uncertainty unlike any before. Nations are testing boundaries. Corporations are experimenting with new models. Individuals are discovering financial freedom on a scale never seen. The rules of money are changing, but the outcome is still invisible. For viewers, this is not just a lesson in history. It is a moment to ask, what happens if the dollar is no longer dominant? What will the world look like if the next currency empire is digital, decentralized, or controlled by entirely new actors? Who will decide the rules of trade, finance, and power in the coming decades? The cycle continues. Silver, stock markets, industry, credit, and now digital money, they all tell the same story. Financial empires rise, dominate, and face challengers. The next chapter is unwritten. The stakes are enormous. The outcome will touch every nation, every company, and every individual. History does not repeat, it reinvents itself. And the next empire of money? It could be anyone or anything. The future is coming, and the world is about to find out who will control it.